is a monthly calendar from the year 50. Cryptic words like sprint, daily minimi, and GPI span the marker-drawn grid, the grand scheme of production and money. It looks a bit like an academic calendar, only much more brutal. Minimi stands for a mini meeting. It's part of a bigger framework for managing work called RUN. Station 41 tried to implement it a few years ago, but failed. Your eyes glide over 4 sections of the imposing green chalkboard. The handwriting is only partly legible, but you can still make out 3 slogans: call in, tune out, Wirral untethered, and heat death of the universe. The full text reads, heat death of the universe is the new black. Another note says, the biggest advancement in role-playing systems since the 30s. Outside, a cold wind wraps the building in its bosom. Snowflakes in the wind. An old woman passes what the locals call the doomed commercial area. She tries hard not to look at the bookstore windows. It's unwise. The dusty radio computer sleeps on its wired frame, forgotten and unused. The keyboard has a rectangular on-off button. A piece of paper still hangs from the printer. The machine lights up like some prehistoric animal stirring from its slumber, revealing fluorescent play and print keys on the keyboard. The hatch on the machine's central compartment is wide open. It's empty like a beehive without its brood. Some cables have been left dangling, disconnected. The filament you have would fit perfectly inside the compartment. Like a smooth draw, the filament slides into place. On the keyboard, the play key starts blinking. A bar of fabric right above the keyboard starts producing a soft hum. The sound of static seeps through the machine's planar magnetic driver. Have you stirred the ghost of the doomed commercial area from its rest? Could this be its dismembered heart beginning to flutter? The static gets louder, slowly filling up the abandoned hall, until a voice speaks out, crackling and old, cutting into the air.
Good afternoon. Fortress accident en rue de Saint-Ghislaine. This is East Insulindian Repeater Station 1. Please repeat. Is this the production schedule? Yes, I am alive. I am 74 years old and my name is Yvonne. Now please repeat. Is this the production schedule?
She repeats passwords. Programming people are all paranoid.
They are merely cautious. It's my job to protect their filaments as a password repeater at the East Insulindian Station. I work as a repeater at the East Insulindian Repeater Station. It's my job to know where you are, Fortress Accident. As for me, well, I am sitting in my cubicle, surrounded by a wall of radios.
On an island on the river Esperance, a small woman, all skin and bones, sits in a room filled with audio equipment. Thousands of tiny lights are reflected back from her prescription lenses, like stars in the dark. Doesn't it get lonely, sitting there all by herself?
Lonely? Why would it get lonely? I get to talk to people all day.
That's why she does this.
Now please tell me the reason for your call, Fortress Accident. The filament you have inserted into the reader. Yes. Is that the production schedule? Good. Please repeat the password.
Password? Of course it would have a password. That's why there's a human administrator involved.
No.
A hint system is not part of the protocol for repeater stations.
Still no. I am contractually obliged to protect the privacy of the filament holder, Fortress Accident. Without filing a warrant with Lintel, I cannot give you access to this filament.
I'm afraid we are not doing that, unless we want to wait for a month.
Now, can you please repeat the password? Received. I will register this login attempt.
Don't worry. Passwords have a way of turning up sooner or later.
Fortress Accident. Is there anything else I can do for you? Fortress Accident is the company on whose name the terminal you are currently using has been registered to. One moment. Fortress Accident SCA produces revolutionary interactive call-in radio games. That's what the catalog says.
That's not bad.
Any other questions? Thank you, and goodbye.
Tiles on the cube are still smoldering, casting the frame. Nothing happens. The filament slides out of its glowing nest. Nothing happens. Something's missing. There's no tape in the player. This old fireplace is covered. The whole thing resembles...
Okay, What do you think is going on with that computer, chalkboard, and fireplace? Yes, that is the question.
Like he's ready to lay out a fine theory.
It looks like one of those popular pen and paper role-playing games, only these people were trying to automate it, make it work on radio computers.
Utter madness, he thinks, as a compliment.
Through call-in stations, none of the players have to be physically present. Anyone in the world can participate in the game, as long as they have a two-way radio. Then there's the game master frequency that listens in on the smaller call-in stations. I think that was supposed to coordinate the stories, functioning as a master of ceremonies of sorts.
His fascination has swept aside other concerns for the moment. He's a little hooked. Coordinating so many games would take a whole switchboard of people, possibly divided into sub-frequencies.
Not to my knowledge. They make automated games in Grad, Messina, Königstein. You know, places with industry. But I don't think anyone has attempted to create an interisolary game before. We just don't have the technology.
Basically D&D. Nice.
Indeed, those Welkins are a dead giveaway. Role-playing people love that stuff. The world looks like a modified version of the WeWorld board game, with hit death thrown in.
Super cool. Someone should give them millions of real immediately. This game is too good to be left unfinished.
No idea. They stopped filling out the schedule on the chalkboard. Indeed, it's ambitious and untethered from reality, but... It's too late for that, I'm afraid. Okay, let's keep moving.
The barbell waits patiently on the floor, like a dog for its master. Your flashlight slides over an old green chalkboard covered in scribbles. Some of the writing has faded with age. These lithe, pointy-eared creatures appear to be different translucent Welkins, with organs shining under. Who are all those creatures? One of the Welkins, towering among the rest. It's Vara Hamira, a high Welkin, his face white and scarred like cracked marble. The Haldor, the Tworg, the humans, and even headless men, all of them.
An inordinate amount of time has gone into drawing these little Welkin creatures. Just look at those details.
And for what? The photo collage depicts barren, icy landscapes. Entire oceans have been frozen. You see primitive oil rigs built into glaciers, boreal, albeit dark and cold. A pinned postcard reads, "This is a monthly calendar from the year 50. Cryptic words like sprint, daily minimi, and GPI span the marker-drawn grid. It looks a bit like an minimi stands for a mini meeting. It's part of a bigger framework for many. As time goes on, the numbers in the boxes grow rarer and rarer. The board becomes an empty snowfield in the final days.
Looks like they didn't make it.
A note in the bottom left corner of the chalkboard says, "See the prod schedule filament for details." The handwriting is only partly legible, but you can still make out 3 slogans: call in, tune out, Wirral untethered, and heat. The full text reads, "Heat death of the universe is the new black." Another note says, "Outside, the whole thing resembles Kadran mosaic tiles. History classes, students with their textbooks open. Radio frequencies, it seems. UKV 123, unclear. It looks like a cardiovascular system split into veins and capillaries. Very advanced." You think so? The web is comprised of radio stations, all lead back to one red heart, titled the Game Master Frequency. They must have had massive airwidth. These things don't come cheap. Whoever decides to call a list of all of this is gone. There's no way a little basement studio.
My God. It's as if the less money they had, the more ambitious their project became. The schedule. I know doom when I see it. The company was...
Nothing. It's just lines. A thick layer of coal dust covers a lush layer of coal now covers your skin, sinking into. Maybe you could paint something with this coal. Leave a cave painting for future archaeologists. No, that would be stupid. A thick layer of coal dust covers the furnace. A few bricks have fallen off, revealing a compartment behind the wall. It's too dark to see in.
Seems like an old bunker from the revolutionary period. Look at all those rifles. Must be an old weapons cache.
Hi guys, can you see me? Can you hear me?
There is, yes. And there also appears to be something inside the hole. Interesting. Do you want to take a look?
Your hand reaches deep into darkness and spiderwebs. Rummaging around, you find rusty rifles hidden away.
Are these any good?
Most of them are rusty and inoperable, like the rest, but one catches your eye. A bolt-action model with a fine wood stock, in better cosmetic order than the others.
That's a rare sight. Seems to no longer be functional, but still a beautiful thing in its own way. It means there are firearms, albeit inoperable, still lying around in Martinez. It's an interesting coincidence, I would say. Might come in useful in the future.
He likes this find. A few bricks have fallen off. This orange machine is dead still. It has a hand-cranked ice cream churner and an electric freezer.
Vigilance officer, what can this old carabiner do for you? It's a Bell McGrave, 4.46 caliber, breech loading, Revachol made. Good weapon, accurate and reliable. This one's inoperable. The bolt spring is missing and the mechanism is jammed shut. Still a beauty. Where did you find her? I'm not surprised. There are probably lots of forgotten wartime weapons lying around here. Back in the day, everyone had something stashed away. As for the rifle, I don't know what else to tell you. These BM-446s are an antique. No one uses them anymore. The ammunition is impossible to find. What is this? Are you mocking us? This isn't for pétanque.
Now. No need to get angry again, René. I'm sure the officer tried his best. It's not like there's a bull kiosk here in Martinez.
The best, huh? This isn't even a bull. But fine. I guess you did attempt to right your hooliganism. Consider it forgiven.
All you observe is a veteran refusing to let go of the past and his old uniform. This is not uncommon.
This is the uniform of the Royal Carabiniers in service of Frissel I, Guillaume le Lion, and the valiant King Philip V before him.
Don't you mean Frissel the Fan?
You do not speak his name, Craven, although he was a clown. But he was our clown, ours to ridicule and to mourn.
There's something you missed. You will get to it. Don't worry.
Trying to sneak up on me. Come to...
Logic error. She is not sleeping right now.
Pig's come to take me out. Trying to snuff me out. Then why are you sneaking up on me like that? It's not a good idea to scare me, pig. Not a good idea at all. Trying to sneak up on me again! Trying to...
This must be it. The basement door is weather-worn. The copper nails holding the upholstery in place have turned green from sea air, and there's a knocker shaped like a lion's head. The Royal Lion, Guillaume's kitten. This knocker will last a lifetime and then some. The door is slick with rain. You don't hear any movement inside. In fact, it's oddly silent in the yard around you. No birds chirp. You knock silently. The upholstery muffles the sound. No response comes from the apartment.
I guess no one is in? Let's be honest. This isn't what I joined the RCM for, but every day tells you something new about yourself. Apparently, working with the local union boss to get info on an investigation is not something I'm squeamish about. I mind that the local thug is using the RCM for his busy work. But if this gets us to the bottom of this hanging, then I'm willing to look over it. On the other hand, we could just leave and tell Evrard we opened the door. No one seems to be tailing us to see if we actually did it. Yes, Presenting a fabrication is known to get results here and there. You took this task. You make the call.
The door is right here. You can just open it and be done with this.
Homer, this is a message for you. Keep watching the stream.
Besides, if you never open it, you're never gonna find out what's behind the door. This is a wall on the side of an apartment building.
Hey, up here, piggo.
A striking woman leans against the cabin top of her sailing boat, smiling as you approach. Her green raincoat glistens with droplets. A silk
Good afternoon, officers. I'm Joyce. Joyce L. Messier. I represent the board of Wild Pines, the owners of the harbour. You gentlemen must be from the RCM. Dayton, my maiden name. Nothing, honestly. I've said it to every drunk in town, and you're the first one who's responded.
Relax. She meant it in jest.
I'm glad to see you here.
Like steel. There is strength there. If she wanted, she could sink her nails deep into your skin.
I was dispatched to handle a strike, not a lynching. Anything I can do to assist the RCM in this matter, I will, gladly.
That is good to hear, madame. My colleague will take the lead on this interview. I should let you know that he is recovering from an unusual medical episode. Very unusual. But I can assure you of his ultimate competency.
There's a trace of irony in his voice. Mischief, even. The lieutenant is hatching some scheme.
How interesting. I wish you a swift recovery. In the meanwhile, you have my full cooperation, and the full cooperation of the Wild Pines group. Why, yes I am. Of course there are. We're on an archipelago. How else are you supposed to get around? Yes, we are. We are on Le Caillou. We are. And the city of Revachol is on the island of Le Caillou. I haven't seen anyone else drive a souped-up Capri Kenema motor carriage either.
Actually, that motor carriage has been specially issued to serve as a patrol and pursuit vehicle. It's for crossing long distances in the greater Revachol industrial harbor. It's not a toy.
Neither is this. A toy, I mean. It's a machine for crossing long distances in the Bay of Revachol, between the city and the islands. The boat? No. It is called Cor de Leyte 19, because that's the type of sloop it is. It's a pleasure craft, a 19 pacer. It'd also be rated for Category 1 racing, though these days I mainly use it for business. My sloop? I like it a lot. It's the eel's hips, baby.
I'm enjoying this part of the interview. It has so little to do with the murder we're investigating.
I really do, the lieutenant thinks. Is she thrown off yet? He's looking at the woman, assessing her.
Officer, I assure you I'm a highly qualified pleasure craft operator.
The crowns of her teeth are porcelain, white as the boat's hull as she smiles. Qualified pleasure craft operator. So charming. Where's the damn license?
I just renewed its safety inspection last month, officers. It is completely seaworthy. In fact, it's taken part in not one, but 2 insulindic regattas. Even finished once. The other time, I would have finished the race were it not for an urgent work matter, much like the one I'm on now.
Actually, you don't. The Wayfarer Act specifically denies the RCM the authority to demand anyone's operator license. It's a little-known fact among us law officials. No need to resort to self-pity, detective. You can still ask for her passport.
Of course.
The woman is silent, smiling while the waves lap against the hull. In your hand, under the plastic, a light blue passport. The Republic of Vespa, formerly the Republic of Vespa Messina, was once a dual kingdom. An amicable parting of ways produced 2 constitutional monarchies. Vespa, the richer of the 2, is an occidental nation known for its... It is a stable country, and yet there has always been something ominous about its perfect stability. It's a place at the edge of the Mwindi Isola, overlooking the Obi Sunt Isles, fracturing into the great unrest of the Pearl. The woman, born in the year 3 in the commune of Revachol, smiles at you, face adorned with frown lines and crow's feet. The photo is recent. The name reads, Rejoice Leighton Messier.
Yes, but please don't call me that. Joyce is much more efficient.
She doesn't like it. Probably a bad memory. Mean girls at school or some ancient lover.
My husband is. I have dual citizenship. A Vespertine is handier when traveling.
She nods and returns the plastic bag to her coat.
Good. What we do. I'm afraid I don't speak for Wild Pines as a whole. It's a giant undertaking. The Pines' core competency is logistics. Container shipping, freight, that sort of thing. See those airships there, blinking? Those are the shipping side of things. And that is the terminal. Another subdivision deals with energy, oil and gas exploration, offshore platforms.
The Wild Pines Group is one of the original Revacholian Indo-tribes. Companies awarded royal monopolies by the king, the suzerain himself, centuries ago. The king is long gone, but several of the Indo-tribes remain. Saint-Baptiste, Elysium, an unknown entity known as Brightest Star.
Why, thank you. I'm not at liberty to discuss the company balance sheet, but I can tell you that last year, the company booked more than 20 billion real in revenue.
A billion?
$20 billion is a large number, but the conglomerate employs 72,000 people. They all need to be paid. Then there are capital improvements, interest payments. A conglomerate the size of the Wild Pines is like a shark. If it stops moving, it will die. Then what becomes of those 72,000 families? It's a tremendous responsibility. They started as an exploration and cargo fleet conducting trade between the Samaran and Insulindian Isolas 250 years ago, when pine ships explored the South Seminese and charted Lomantang on behalf of the suzerain. Centuries of care, deliberation, and madness have gone into this endeavor. Vessels pass through the great unrest to re-emerge with apricots in tow. The logic of the system is totalizing. It's taken everything from its employees to build it. You know more than you let on. Certainly it helped, but most of the original Indo tribes have failed, or been absorbed. To survive, Wild Pines had to grow and adapt. No suzerain did that. You mean aside from being the terminal's legal owners, who are responsible for moving 8% of the world's cargo? There are no minor cogs in the system. Each terminal must be accounted for, lest the entire system break. Every hiccup in such a system means thousands lose their jobs, the world over. I'm here to assure that doesn't happen.
With your help, hopefully, says her warm tone.
Everything. Right up to, but not including, trade secrets. First, you'd have to repeal the Emergencies Act of Trade in Aliments. That gives me the right to silence. It's quite the octopus. Why? By throwing off half a century of foreign domination under the Coalition. Unfortunately for you, the Coalition also leases you the right to police West Revachol.
You'd be shooting yourself in the foot, in other words.
But I am derailing us. You wanted to know about the strike. I believe the official title is Senior Labor Negotiator. In practice, I'm a grocery clerk. I relay the union's demands to Wild Pines and return with Wild Pines' counteroffer.
And how are the talks going?
They're not. That's the problem. The union stopped all negotiations a week ago. Now they won't even let me into the harbour. There's a 2-meter-20 racist behemoth blocking the gates. Yes, Jean-Luc Measurehead. Let's say I was not making the kind of progress I'd hoped for when I first arrived.
And when did you first arrive?
I arrived 3 weeks ago. Yes, in the middle of February. The bay was still partially frozen then. I prefer to do these things on site, like the RCM.
But the strike began in December.
I wasn't the original negotiator here. I took over after Mr. Gaumont hit a wall with Mr. Clare, the union boss. Mr. Clare refused to speak with Gaumont despite concessions he'd granted the union in prior negotiations.
This isn't the first time the union has gone on strike.
Heavens no. There have been 2 prior strikes. Both times the union won significant concessions, including overtime pay and a medical plan. This time their demands are more, I guess you could say, aggressive. Mr. Clare told him to... how did he put it? Fuck off, midget. Gaumont is short of stature, you see. Yes. Keep in mind, this is a negotiator Mr. Clare has worked with before, and who was more than fair with him and the union. There are leaflets everywhere, and banners. What did they say again? Oh, yes. Every worker, a member of the board.
Most of the workers probably don't know what that means.
In its defense, another said, demand democracy. Pretty tame stuff compared to every worker a member of the board. Fortunately, they explained it. Every time the Wild Pines group makes a decision about anything, it needs the signature of each of the 2,200 workers in its Martinez terminal. Just so you understand, this is but one of 22 terminals owned by Wild Pines. Essentially, not only are they kings of the company, they are also kings of the 72,000 employees of Wild Pines Group. They're having a blast. But how can they afford it? After 4 months, my assumption was they would prefer a more practical solution. I'm not sure. Naturally, I assume that was just their opening position, a hard-nosed tactic with a side of mockery. But there's been no follow-up, just the same nonsensical slogan repeated over and over again. And now, people are getting lynched, I hear. Behind the whirling in rags. A disastrous situation if there ever was one.
Excuse me, from whom did you hear about this lynching?
I first heard it from the boyer at the gates. The one whose very name advertises his aversion to work. I think he said it was, "Call me mañana."
This checks out.
The scabs? You mean the huddled masses of Jamrock, come to plead for work where the Union refuses to? If they were organized by Wild Pines or its affiliates, then it would be a company secret. I could not share it with you. Not right now, at least.
It's implied. She's open to discussing this matter with you at a later occasion.
Everard Clare is a man of the utmost integrity. If you can say one thing about him, it's that he always puts the interests of the workers first. Of course not. Everard is fantastically corrupt. I imagine he has a thick, viscous goo where you and I have blood. He is the most corrupt individual I have ever seen, and I deal with men like him for a living. If there is anyone more venal, more irredeemably nepotistic, then it's his twin brother, Edgar. Have you seen him? Edgar looks exactly like his brother, except for that lazy eye. He also talks exactly like Everard does, and when one's term as foreman is up, the other takes over. It's how they circumvent the term limits, you see, with a funny little switcheroo. While in office, they've embezzled God knows how much of their workers' dues. The Débardeurs Union was once a perfectly normal institution. 20 years ago, anyway. It must not have been easy to establish under the Emergency Act, but they did it. I can respect that. Organised labour at its best, as they say. Then something happened in the local chapter elections. The brothers Clare came and transformed it into a... how do you say?
A mob. The Débardeurs are a crime syndicate. Sad as it may be, we are forced to cooperate with them.
Refreshingly honest, officer. The company has tried appeasing in the past, but I'm afraid our concessions have only emboldened Everard and his brother. And your opinion, detective, if I may ask? I'm a curious and talkative person, you see. Would you say the Débardeurs Union is... Thank you for being candid. Sadly, Wild Pines have cooperated with what amounts to a crime syndicate for 2 decades. However much you feed the wolf always hungers. I'm glad you asked. There was a woman, the previous forewoman of the Union. She disappeared.
Disappeared?
Yes. On the last day of the local chapter elections, her daughter phoned in and said she wasn't running anymore. Or coming to work. Ever. End of story. Indeed. The company suspects foul play, but there's nothing they could do. It was The point of the presentation is, these kinds of things happen around the Clares. Watch out when you're dealing with him.
Thank you for your concern, ma'am. We'll be just fine.
Of course. How else can I help? Quite a few things, I'm afraid. The information I'm to share with you includes sensitive trade secrets. For the sake of my employer, I have to ask for your names and badge numbers.
Of course, ma'am. We should have introduced ourselves. I am Lieutenant Kitsuragi, from Precinct 57. And this is my colleague from Precinct 41, Detective Dubois. I'm afraid Harry